Hello. This video lesson is about the motives and objectives of the firm. Looking at this graph right here, this is a graph of a monopolistic competitive market. And these are the different quantities that a firm can choose from the beginning and from the short run to the long run. So in general, when we think about the quantity that the monopolistic competition would choose, we go for the standard assumption that the profit maximization is where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. That is a standard assumption. So in this graph, the marginal cost equals marginal revenue is here. So that means the quantity that we would choose is Q1, and this is P1 is the price that associates with that Q1. Also, the profit could be calculated by calculating P times Q1, which is the total revenue, and subtracting the cost, which is this area here and below it. Okay, so that is the standard assumption when we look at these graphs, for that the only objective is profit maximization. But also you need to consider that firms will also use strategy to make money now and in the future. There are different strategies for businesses. And also there's difficulties of business. So the first and most important difficulty in business, this is theoretical. In real life, it is very difficult. It is not something that is really easy to do, to find where marginal costs equal marginal revenue. So you will see some firms that will not produce at the quantity equal to marginal revenue equals marginal cost, simply because they don't know where it is. It is difficult to calculate MC and MR. It's not something that is obvious. Okay, the next thing that firms have to consider is market share. This is monopolistic competition. This is not a monopoly. Monopolistic competition means there are at least one or two or three or many firms that are producing a very similar product. And a new entrant into the market in the monopolistic competition may try to assume market share to get a larger market share by producing more quantities than its competitors. Remember, the monopolistic competitor cannot set the price itself, but the monopolistic competitor chooses the quantity that is produced in order to lower or increase the market price level. So in this case, at Q4, given that this market competitor has produced Q4, this is the lowest price, P4, of all of these other prices. So at this quantity, Q11, that's the highest price. So if the firm produces Q1, the price begins to fall as the firm produces more and more and more. So one of the things that a firm would like to do, or might try to do, is to increase its quantity from the Q1 to Q2 to Q3 to Q4 to have more of its product out in the market. More people are buying this product. And also it will be very difficult for competitors to come into the market, because this good is difficult to make. So this, if they chose Q1, it may encourage new interest into the market, because the price level is very high, which allows outside competitors to say, yes, I could join this market because the price that people are willing to pay is very high, and I don't have to produce as much quantity to enter this market. So the firm that is already in the market would want to discourage people from coming into the market by producing more quantities. So now at Q4, the price level that firms would potentially receive from consumers is extremely low, compared to is lower compared to the marginal revenue equals marginal cost price level. So with the lower price level, it is more difficult for firms to enter into the market, for new firms to enter into this monopolistic competitive market. So that is the thing about market share and encouraging new entrants into the market. We want to discourage if you're a monopolistic competitor. And when you produce a larger amount, it if you produce a smaller amount, it could encourage a takeover of your entire firm, because when you're producing a smaller amount, you're not generating enough revenue as to keep other companies from being able to price your firm and to buy you out. So this is another reason why firms will want to, these two reasons are reasons why firms produce more in order to get a larger total revenue. This one is about maintaining market share and making sure that, and trying to keep new entrants out of the market. This one, you don't want to, if you have a low total revenue, it is possible that someone could try to merge with you or just try to bully you. So the larger total revenue you have, you could keep new entrants out of the market and make sure that bigger companies don't bully you as a company. The other problem with this one may attract investigation by Competition Commission. This is about antitrust laws. If you produce a quantity, marginal revenue equals marginal cost. You produce the second smallest amount only to Q11. You produce a small amount of quantity, and if you produce more or less, if you produce more, you provide more quantity to the market. So you don't want to have it to where you have this important product and only a very few people can get it. So you'll start drawing attention as people governments will try to convince you to charge a lower price. So these are reasons why they may not produce at the profit maximizing output. Different strategies related to market share, competition, and from other outside firms. And of course, this one is just, it's hard for a new business to, especially in the short run, to figure out what marginal cost is and marginal revenue. Okay, now we have other objectives of firms. So other objectives of firms is actually pretty interesting because you have a firm and then it gets divided up into three different types of people. You have the shareholders, people outside of the firm who benefit from the firm getting larger because they own a percentage of the firm. Then you have managers within the firm whose design is to run and regulate operations within the firm. And then you have the workers themselves. So the shareholders are interested in producing quantities where sales revenue maximization is larger, not only also to increase the share of the market where marginal revenue equals zero here, but they're also interested in or average cost equal average revenue. You can see that the quantity is going out here. So the total revenue is largest at this point, Q3, at this point, Q2, where, I'm sorry, at the point where marginal revenue equals zero, that's where the total revenue is the largest, okay? And as you sell more and more and more, revenue gets larger and larger and larger. The shareholders get more and more shares, okay? The manager, on the other hand, and the workers are very interesting within the firm. They do not receive any of these benefits as there are economies of scale within the business. For example, the worker, he may be working $10 per hour, and he will get paid the same wage if he produces Q1 as opposed to producing Q4. So there is not much incentive for the firm to workers to work hard, going from Q1 to Q2 to Q3 to Q4, the worker is only going to try to please the worker, and many times the worker will try to limit the quantities that they produce simply to have a happier life. The manager itself, again, is not a shareholder many times, and if the manager does not have a share of the business, the manager will just try to keep the workplace quiet and easy. So in this example, a manager might see one employee just really working hard and really producing a lot and really doing well for the company, but it is possible for the manager to either relocate that worker or talk about the efficiency of the worker's production, just to keep the worker make sure the workers get along with the colleagues. So the manager has an objective of keeping peace within the office and making sure the office runs smoothly. The worker is looking out for the worker, just going to do enough work to please the management, but nothing extra, because they're not getting any piece of the shares. So that's that. So when we look at maximization of sales, there are two main ones. Sales maximization, where average cost equals average revenue. This is the condition where it's called allocative efficient. It is where the demand curve, demand equals average revenue equals the marginal cost. And this is where society receives the amount of product that it desires. And this one, marginal revenue equals zero, is where price times quantity is the largest. So for consumers, they are happy when these two amounts begin to happen as opposed to Q1, because first of all, the price is falling from P1 to P2 and all the way down to P3, and they are getting the extra benefits of having more quantities available in society. So the consumers are happy as this goes down as that. But the firm itself can be happy with this situation of quantity increasing when it's trying to take over the marketplace, get these market shares. So you have different objectives of the firm. You have this one, the standard assumption, and then you start getting into some of the reality of it, the difficulties to find it, the bullying of other competitors and outside litigation. And then you have people within the firm with different needs, wants, and desires moving forward. There's another one that's not really here, and that's Q11. Q11, at this point, the company produces a small amount in the short run when it just opens. It has the ability to produce Q3, Q4, Q2, Q1. It's able to produce all these other quantities, but it chooses Q11 to put a small amount into the market and allow a test run. We call it beta. You'll see a lot of this beta. It doesn't want to pull a lot more than Q11 because it feels the product is not ready for full production yet. So they'll put out a little bit and make sure that the product works and then roll out next. Okay, so we talked about that. Let's see some examples. Okay, the diagram shows the cost and revenue curves of a monopoly. What is the firm objective if it produces output OX? So this is the dollar sign, this is OX, this is the average revenue. Clearly at OX, marginal revenue is equal to zero. So we go back to this, marginal revenue is equal to zero. So the objective of the firm is sales revenue maximization. So that's what we're going to look for here. And it's also called the total revenue. So when marginal revenue equals to zero, price times quantity is the largest, which means that total revenue is the largest. So we look at this. What is the firm's objective if it produces output OX? And then we find the answers here. I want you to think about that yourself. I don't want to give the answer to you. So with that information, marginal revenue equals X, I think you could come up with the answer on your own. Here, a monopolist changes objective from sales revenue maximization to profit maximization. So this is an interesting graph. First of all, sales revenue maximization. Again, if we go back to this, sales revenue maximization, it was a marginal revenue equals 0. So we find marginal revenue equal to 0 over here. Okay. To profit maximization quantity to here. So again, the firm can only change its output, and when it changes its output, the market has a price associated with that. So first comes a change in quantity, and then the market says the price level for that quantity. So on the diagram, which areas represents the monopolist's total profit? Okay, so again, profit is total revenue minus total cost. And in these graphs, we always take the price times quantity at that given level. So this is the total revenue of the sales revenue is P, K, Q2, O, this square here. And then we subtract away the cost. So at this quantity, the costs are F, L, Q, 2. So that gives you the profit area here. And compared to this, the profit of Q1 is going to be price times quantity, price times quantity. So this area, PHOQ, this. And then we subtract away this area, P2J, Q1O. So with that information, I think you could find the area. So the area of the profit, P1HJ, Q2 at Q1. And the area of the profit here is P2KLF. So I think that's enough information for you to solve this. I want you to solve this on your own. Okay, so now we get into the essay questions, 12 points. I was watching a video the other day, and it describes chains. In other words, when you solve these, you start to think about how a term is chained to another piece of information from the question. So I want you to think about that. Let's look at this one first. So objectives of the firm. How are objectives of the firm chained to profit maximization? So for this one, you should discuss what alternative objectives of a firm might have apart from profit maximization. Okay, so the chain is objectives of a firm. 1, profit maximization. So that's one link. That is one chain of the objectives of the firm to profit maximization. A second one is shareholders, workers, and managers. That is how is that linked? The objectives of the firm for each one of these are not centered on profit maximization, but maximizing each individual's happiness. So again, for the shareholder, they just want to see more and more sales. The manager just wants to see more and more. It's easy to keep the business running smoothly. And the worker may want to relax more than work more because they don't receive any of these incentives to increase the shares. So this is the discussion of what alternative objectives a firm might have that are a part from the profit maximization. So that is how you answer that question, the link. Okay, going up to part A, explain how, in theory, a firm might try to increase its profits. Well, we know that profit is equal to total revenue minus total cost. So in this question, you need to think about how a firm might change its quantity as necessary to increase total revenue and minimize total cost. You could think of efficiency here. You could think of advertising here. There are various things that you could think about to increase its profits. But the ideas that you must discuss are how to increase total revenue but decrease total cost. Okay, next one. And I believe this is the last. There are often reports in the press that company profits have not risen as much in previous years. As a result, the company receives adverse criticism. Well, the reason why the company is experiencing criticism is because the shareholders depend on the profits of the company. So when the company is successful and growing, the shareholders receive more and more benefits. So that's why there is adverse criticism. So let's look at the answers, the questions. Explain what a company might do if it wishes to try to increase its profits. Here again, there's a link between the objectives of the firm and increasing its profits. So if the company wants to increase its profits, one of the things that it could do is share some of the shareholders, share percentages of the company with the workers. So the workers, let's go back to the beginning here. Again, the workers may produce somewhere below Q1 profit maximization here. They may produce somewhere below this because they work hourly. So clearly, one of the things they could do is clearly articulate where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. That's Q1, sorry. They need to, as a goal, if you want to increase your profit, clearly articulate that to your firm. Then to the workers, give them a percentage. So if the company is producing below Q1, give your workers a percentage of the shares so that they will produce from Q11 to Q1. If they get a percentage of the shares, they will be more likely to work towards profit maximization than not. Other things you could do is remove your company out of the beta stage. Remember, I said beta. They are testing products here and they produce a lower amount. That will, or if you remove it from beta stage and low production goals and increase your production goals to Q1, that will also help you improve profit. On the cost side, you could train your managers to manage in a way as such to limit the cost of production at every level within your company. So these are just suggestions on ways of how to increase profits. Okay. All right. Well, the last one. Discuss what alternative objectives a company might have apart from profit maximization. Okay. 12-point answer. Just go back up here. These are the alternative goals other than profit maximization. One, they could be increasing the quantity as necessary to get market share. That's what this is. Increase the market share so companies can't take over the business. They may also want to increase quantities from Q1 to Q4 to make sure that they have a large market share of this business. So in other words, this is not the only company within that market. Nike, Adidas, these different types of shoes, New Balance, they may want to lower their prices to control the market. Okay, and then they may attract investigation by competition commission. So these are the different objectives of the firm. And then the other objectives are the manager, the co-workers, the manager, the workers in the firm, and the shareholders. These are contribute to the different ones. So this is the shareholders. They want profit satisfying. So making enough profits to satisfy shareholders and enable firms to follow their other objectives. So they just want more and more and more, so they could take the extra money and put it maybe in research and development and produce different ways to make more and more money. So I hope this helps. This is a lesson on the objective of the firm.